How's it going, guys? Andy here. Today I'm going to show you how to change your strings and condition your fretboard a bit. And I'll go through the supplies first here. So first of all, obviously you're going to need some strings. I like Beefy Slinky because, I don't know, they just sound great. Not the most durable string, but they're a larger gauge, which is good for the tunings I play in. I like a cotton cloth to clean with, but to do the finishing touches, a polyester cloth. Because cotton's going to leave little strings and stuff, but it also at the same time can grab some of that grease and grime that gets caught up in the frets here. Highly recommend getting some kind of conditioner oil. This is the one I've been using for a long time. Yeah, that stuff works real great. This will also save you some time. It's a tuning peg driver, and yeah, it probably takes about 1/10 of what the time is twisting it with your fingers. So I'll definitely recommend one of these guys. They're very cheap. If you have active pickups, probably going to want to throw one of these guys in. That's a 9-volt battery. Highly recommend Duracell over the rest. And yeah, let's get to it. Okay, so if you weren't the last person to put your strings on, you're going to want to check and see which way they were kind of wound on, because some people put them on backwards. You never know, right? Feel out both ways. That's going higher, this is going lower, so obviously you need to take it right off, go low. You just rip them off like this. Of course, I was the last one to put these on, so they're all going the same way. Get them all loosey-goosey. And as soon as you get them loose enough, just pop them right off like that, through. There, you already got one off. Do the next guy, the next guy. There, now we already got the top 3 off there. I'm gonna move on to the bottom. So same thing. Good. All right, so we're just gonna rip that up. Alrighty, now, here is another thing that needs explaining, is right down on the end of your guitar, this is a Les Paul, so this is the kind of setup they got, kind of bridge there. Of course, that's what you call a bridge. And some guitars will actually go right down and through, and you'll have to put the string through on the other side, but in the Les Paul's case, that is not so. Alrighty, so get to this point. I'm just going to take out all these old strings. Be careful with the ends of them, especially when they're curled up. They almost act like fish hooks, and they can really cut you and put a hole in you pretty easily. You might want to get a pair of these. These are wire cutters. If your strings are all hooked on the end like that, it might just be quicker to just come in here and clip them, you know, and then so they just pull out easily. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. Clipping these. Okay, there we be. Now, you're definitely not going to want to lose any of these because, yeah, they can end up in people's feet or fingers or, you know, whatever. When you're discarding of strings like this, make sure you got all of them there because, especially if you have cats, they really like to play with them. So maybe tie them in a knot like this and just pull them through so they all stick together so they're not flying everywhere. Okay, now we're going to go on to the next phase here. And that's the actual cleaning of the guitar. Alrighty, so I have my cotton cloth here, and I have just ran it under some water and then squeezed it out. So it is damp, but it's not enough so that if I squeeze it, there won't be a drip coming out of there, but it is damp. So we're just gonna go around, start up here, get all that dust off the headstock, make it all look nice and shiny. I'll go down here to the body, get this bit. Definitely don't want it to be too damp, especially when you're going around these pickups and such, because water and electricity are just a bad mix. Definitely get all that dust out around the edges there. I also apologize, my camera's not really focusing too good right now, and I do not know why. Anyways, so got all that nice and clean. Now, if you examine your fretboard, there's gonna be kind of grease and grime. You know, there's just kind of nasty grime that builds up in there and eventually gets on the strings or restricts the smoothness of going across here fastly or anything like that, you know. Whenever people say, you know, when it plays like butter, it is like that nice slipperiness of, you know, nice new strings, a well-oiled fretboard. This is a rosewood fretboard, so you don't actually have to condition it with this as much as like a maple, but anyways, we're just gonna go in, and you want to get right in there and clean each fret individually. Give them a good scrubbing in there, and you could really get that grime out. And Also, it works a lot better if you do this kind of motion, this side to side here, as opposed to going over it like this. You'll get, especially with a cotton cloth, you're gonna get a lot more debris and such falling off. You're just much better off to go like this and get right in there. Most of the grime gets caught right in down beside the fret. So I don't know if you could see that there, but right down in there, there's quite a bit of grime in there. And even sometimes, if the grime is really heavy and the guitar hasn't been cleaned for a while, you could take just a toothpick and give it a light kind of scraping to get it out, because some of that grime that gets caught in there is actually pretty tar-like, and it does take quite a bit to get it out and get it correctly done. Just give it another little examination. Some spots could be done a little bit here. Okay. Oh yeah, lots coming out there. You'll definitely want to make sure you do this real good, because this is going to make a world of difference when you actually put the strings on and get shredding. So now that that is done, we are going to take our conditioner. In this case, this is lemon oil, and we're going to put a drop, just a tiny drop like that, in each fret. Just dab it in like this. Maybe when you get to these higher frets, just a tiny bit less, because there's less surface area. I like to personally take my finger to rub this in, because that way you're not getting any, you know, cloth debris or anything like that. So, and go from the center of the fret outward. So I'm talking like in the middle here, and slowly push that outward. You don't want to get everything all greased up on the edge of the guitar here, and just, you know, it's gonna end up being more cleaning after and such. You want to rub this in so you can see that oil touching both sides in there, and just keep rubbing it in nicely with your finger like that. It's good stuff. This cleans and protects your fretboard and just gives it a really nice slipperiness to when you actually get the strings and everything on there. I can only imagine what it would have been like for someone like Stevie Ray Vaughan, who is probably one of the slipperiest guitar players around. Just a beautiful slide technique. How it would be like for a pro like him playing an unconditioned neck. It would just feel nasty on the fingers, and just the tone would just not be there with that kind of playing. So this really does do wonders for your instrument. Okay, so now that I've kind of got all this here, everything looks pretty good. We're just gonna let this sit for about 20 minutes to a half hour. Really let it absorb that. And if there's any excess on the sides or that has gotten on your guitar there, you can just go along with your cloth and just kind of pick it off the edge there, just lightly. And then yeah, we're gonna let this absorb a little bit, and we're gonna come back in 20 minutes and then brush it down with the polyester cloth, and then we'll probably put those strings on. Alrighty, and we are back. Okay, so now I'm just gonna take the polyester cloth and go along, first along the outsides like that. I'm going like this, kind of keeping that grease in there, and then just lightly from the center out. And don't get too extreme with it, just a nice light kind of scrub. Just like that. So you might want to start out with just, you know, a few fingers like that, and then scrubbing over it, and then kind of when it gets down to the fine tuning stuff, just maybe use one of your fingers and down to a point like that, and just keep this motion going over like this. We're almost in there. You just want to make sure you don't have any excess in there, because it'll work against you in the long run. It'll end up on your strings, and then it'll end up collecting dirt and grime and all that jazz. Okay, all right, now after we've rubbed it off with the polyester, I like to go over it one more time, push it all to one side with just the palm of my hand to really even out that conditioner or lemon oil or whatever it is you're using, and just kind of just like that. So it should be good to go for the next step here. Okay, so here we are on our next step. Neck is looking perfect right now with the oil soaked in there and everything. And this is especially important on older Les Pauls and such like that. You're just going to want to take a pencil and just dab a little bit of lead, or whatever the hell is in a pencil, in between there. And that lubricates it so your string isn't going to grip and bind and slide around. Let's get you out of there, Molly. Alrighty, so on to our next step here. We're gonna get the new strings going in through our little bridge piece. So open her up. Okay, And typically I like to just get the first string in there. A lot of people like to you do one of the middle ones just to hold it in place, but it's not too bad as long as you don't tighten it up quite a bit right off the bat. When you're putting these in, it's finding the appropriate amount of length to leave on the end, because if you leave too much, it's going to bulk it up down there, and then you're going to have tuning issues later on. But we'll just slap her in there. Okay, so I've got my bridge piece down there, the one string, holding that in. We're just going to put it through, hole here, putting her through, pull it in, keep the bridge tight down here, and then here is where you're gonna wanna find the right amount of slack. So what I would suggest, because the string is gonna stretch out a little bit, just, you know, you wanna, right over the 12th fret, give it about 2 inches, no more than 2.5. Especially if you're using a thicker gauge like this, because it doesn't have a whole lot of room on the tuning pig down here. And so we'll just call that about 2 inches off of the 12th fret when you stretch it out and pull it like this. Once we're at this point, we'll just keep a little bit of tension here and wind this guy up. Now, I'm turning this so that this is going counterclockwise, and that is the correct way, so you won't get any awkward pulling. Another thing I like to do, so this string is just kind of flopping out right now. I find it works pretty good if you just bend it up like this and then spin it so that this string goes underneath of there. You want to try and get it in the center of that peg. We'll just wind her up a bit, keeping it down here. That's where that lubrication of the pencil really comes in handy. And we'll just keep it going. Oh yeah, genty. So that's pretty decent right there. And we got one in there. Now our bridge is held in place because of that. And we'll just get the other ones on there. So repeat the same process. Bring them out. Make sure when you take apart these strings that you're very careful not to put a kink or anything in it. So we're just putting them in, pulling it down. And for those of you who are extremely new to this, on a right-handed guitar, you're going to want to put the thickest string on the very top and thinnest on the bottom. So same kind of process here. Make sure that there is, you can go a little bit more for the smaller gauge strings. So we could call this one 2.5 to 3 inches off of that 12th fret there. Bring it down here. Becomes a lot easier when your bridge is in place after that first string. So we'll just wind this guy up. Now, and this is that same kind of important thing. You really want your string to be going underneath and centralized on that peg there. Just like this. Holding this down slightly, turning it in just like that. The idea is you want to get at least a full wind of string on there. It actually helps find the fine tuning of it a lot more if you have a little bit of string wound up on there. That's not too bad right there. That's pretty good. Doesn't matter. I would recommend not clipping these until you have everything in there and you've tuned it a few times, because you never know what's going to pop around. Okay, same thing. 2.5 to 3 inches of excess sticking up there, and I like to hold it in here. Keep this with the out string, the other side of it going out there. Keep that held up as I wrap the one underneath. So as soon as I get it underneath that string on the first wind, it should just kind of naturally go into its own place there in the center of that peg, which is what we want. Bring her up, put her in place. Okay, yeah, she's coming. Okay, awesome. Now we'll just get these 3 bottom ones. Now this is the string you really gotta be the most careful with on when you're winding it up. Of course, the G string. I would recommend giving this one just a bit more on that 12th fret, so maybe 3 inches for this guy. So you're winding it up an appropriate amount. So I'll just get that guy twisting. Okay, and now since this is on the bottom, this guy is turning clockwise, and that is just appropriate for the Gibson headstock, which has 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom. Same thing, keep it nice and central on that peg. One thing I forgot to mention before, you want to make sure she's sitting right in your string saddles, and sometimes they'll catch just on the outside. You want to make sure they're in the grooves there. Okay, and as you're getting these all kind of just pitched up, you want to, you don't need to overdo it. Just get them in there so that they're tight and they're going to hold in their slots. All right, 2 more to go. So, getting this guy through, getting excited. We're almost done. Pull him through, And like I said, the lighter gauge you are, the more slack you can give it because you have that much more space on your tuning peg. Same thing with this, same direction, we're going clockwise, and always focusing on keeping that string in the center of that tuning peg. That's extremely important so you don't get any popping around, and then you'll immediately be quite a bit out of tune in most of those cases. Okay, now I'm just holding a little tension on this as I tighten it, making sure we're in the right areas here. Good, 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 good. Almost in there. Okay, on to the final one. And just a little quick tip as well. If your nut is, that's this white piece right here which holds all this, if that is in rough condition, which mine has been, and I actually need to fix this, but where my G string sits, it has, because it's such a tight, I think it's the highest tension string on the guitar, it's been kind of peeling away down here because I didn't actually properly lube it, you know, years before. And one thing that you can do is actually put some super glue in there. You got to be very careful. Put some super glue in there and file it down if you need to make sure that that is sitting right. As you can see, mine right now, the G string sits a little bit further down. Makes it a little bit weird to play and such, but with the Gibson headstock, there's a bit of a bind which goes to that string, and yeah, and it also kind of puts a lot of stress on that and creates those issues. But anywho, so we have our bottom string on. Let's just tighten that up a bit. Not in tune, but we're gonna get to that right away. So usually by this point, I will clip all these strings off. However, because we've twisted them all up, it actually kind of makes for kind of dangerous poking your fingers. The amount of times I went to tune and just poked my thumb or whatever on these. So you're gonna wanna try and face these inside here. So face them in like this, and you'll save yourself some finger pokage for sure. I'm just gonna bend this guy in a little, clip. This guy in a little bit and clip. And make sure you're not clipping anywhere where your string is, you know, don't catch the brand new string on there and then end up clipping your brand new string off. Because believe me, it can happen. Okay, now we're gonna tune it. So what I recommend actually is the clip-on tuners. They work absolutely great. And they're you can get them for, you know, 20 bucks at some places. But just for now, I'm going to use my amp simulation program, Bias Effects, which is just a deadly program. The tones you can get out of it are unreal. But I'm going to use this to tune up. So I'm a whole step down, so that would be D, G, C, F, A, D. So let's just go ahead and tune that up. So we've gotten this far. I have this tuned in a whole step down now. Basically, when it gets to this point, you're going to want to go through, play all over the strings, all over the frets. Don't be scared to give it some big bends. Really stretch the strings out because they're going to constantly be going out of tune at this point anyways. So just go through, do some things. Doesn't even matter. Doesn't even need to sound good, but I highly recommend just doing a bunch of big bends all over. You might get some poppage going on, you know, things slipping into place, you know, but see, and then it's already way out of tune again. So I'm gonna go back to my bias effects here, open up my tuner again. And you might have to repeat this process like 3 or 4 times, but it'll definitely be worth it in the end to really stretch out your strings and get every spot really in its groove. Alrighty, so I've tuned it up for the second time now. And things are starting to sound like they're already slipping into place. So you might need to just retune a couple times, really play it, you know, give it at least a good solid 15-20 minutes straight of playing, and it should be good to go. And that is how to condition your guitar. Now, if you have a guitar with active pickups, that means it requires a battery. And it is a good idea to replace that battery every once in a while, because your tone out of your pickups is gonna really kind of corrode and just sound kind of farty and nasty, and you won't get that same kind of nice attack or, you know, high gain pickups. Just won't sound near as good. We will open her up on the back here. Just pop this guy off. As you can see, I'm using Duracell, a brand that I highly recommend for this sort of thing. Alright, so just a quick, nice, easy swap out like that. Just make sure she is snapped in. And we'll just tuck her back in there. And put the screws back on. And be very careful. You want to just go very lightly with these. You don't want to over screw it and end up reaming your holes out. It does not take much. Just a nice light twist of the fingers there. And there you have it. Good to go.